Good morning. Good morning. It is Tuesday, November 12th, our Pima County Board of Supervisors meeting. Thank you all for being here. Can I get a roll call to establish quorum, please?
Supervisor Christie.
Here.
Supervisor Hines. Supervisor Lee. Here. Supervisor Scott.
Here.
Chair Grijalva.
Here.
Let the record show Supervisor Hines is not present. All other board members are present.
Thank you. To lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we're going to have Elma Schaefer. She works at Santa Rosa Library and is a library associate. Can you come up to the mic right here? Thank you so much. And thank you for being here. We appreciate that. We can all stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And now we have our land acknowledgement to be offered by Dr. Carletta Chief, Director, University of Arizona Indigenous Resilience Center. And it's a recording.
Yate and blessings to each of you. Greetings to the Pima County Board of Supervisors, Chair Grijalva, and all those in attendance today. And thank you to the Tahana Atam and the Pascuyaki tribes for allowing us to be guests on their ancestral lands. My name is Dr. Carletta Chief, and I'm honored to serve as the director of the Indigenous Resilience Center at the University of Arizona. I'm also a professor in environmental science and an extension specialist. Before we begin, I would like to introduce myself in my Diné language. Yate Adolto. I am from the Bitterwater clan, and my father is from the Near the Water clan. And my maternal grandfather is Mini Goats, and my paternal grandfather is Red Running into the Water. This connection to my heritage informs my identity as a Navajo woman, mother, and wife. My upbringing in a coal-impacted community drives the work that I do in addressing environmental challenges facing tribes. This month is Native American Heritage Month, and I'm deeply honored to be invited by Chair Grijalva to present the land acknowledgement statement at this meeting. On behalf of Pima County residents, we honor tribal nations who have served as caretakers of this land from time immemorial, and respectfully acknowledge the ancestral homes of the Tahana Atam Nation and the multi-millennium presence of the Pascuyaki tribe within Pima County. Consistent with Pima County's commitment to diversity and inclusion, we strive toward building equal partner relationships with Arizona's tribal nations. I encourage all of us to go beyond the land acknowledgement to support tribal nations. At IRES, we strive to do this every day through our community-driven research, extension, outreach, and educational efforts. The mission of IRES is to center Indigenous ways of knowing into co-designed environmental solutions. IRES aims to be a central hub of interdisciplinary research and resilience across the University of Arizona campus while serving Native nations. While we strive to catalyze groundbreaking research, we maintain a collaborative role, working respectfully alongside tribal communities. Our guiding principles are respect, reciprocity, responsibility, and relationship building. Climate change and other environmental challenges are impacting tribes, given their unique connections to Mother Earth and Father Sky. However, Indigenous peoples are resilient. I want to express my heartfelt thanks to the Pima County Board of Supervisors, Chair Grijalva, for the work they do with tribes. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you and please have a productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chief. Now we have pause for pause. I thought I saw them. Oh, there they are. These babies are adoptable, everybody. Just, I hear the ahs. Oh my gosh. Look at that baby. Okay. Please, go ahead.
So hi, my name is Katie Hutchinson, and I'm the Animal Placement Manager at Pima Animal Care Center. And we are here today with these two cuties to hopefully help them and all of their friends at PAC find adoptable homes this coming weeks. So some of you may know, but at PAC we have been challenged with a historically high census. And last week we also got in over 300 chickens and roosters after a collaboration with the Sheriff's Department to hopefully get them into a safer environment. And so PAC right now is kind of at a really challenging point. But my goal today is actually to express gratefulness to our Pima County community, because despite all of our challenges, over the last couple weeks, we've seen just an outpouring of support for our community. Just last week, we also hosted our Snip and Tip event, which actually altered 596 community cats to hopefully help us get through kitten season next year a little bit easier. This included over 100 local veterinary professionals, including students from the U of A and JTED, as well as over 100 other volunteers at PAC that really just helped us run the event, and then all of the community members who helped trap local cats to hopefully get them happy and healthier out in the community. We also have seen a historically high census, but yet last week saw a great community support to help bring our census down. And with our chickens and roosters, have had people working all hours of the day, volunteering to just help us go and make sure that we're able to safely care for those animals as well. So as a thanks to our community, we're also hosting our Fall Fest event coming up on Sunday, November 17th. It'll be a fun day at PAC. If people haven't been, it's a great opportunity just to come check out the facility, come and see some great pets. We'll have food trucks and carnival games and some just great fun experiences, in addition to so many cute pets like these two, who will all be looking for homes, and we would love to get everybody into a happy home for the holidays.
They're so cute. You guys really look at the little face. Stop. What are their names in case someone watching would like one of these puppies?
So they actually came in with their 6 other litter mates. So we've kind of run out of creative juices with everything going on. So they also are in need of names. So if you've had that perfect puppy name in the back of your head, they are needing homes and names.
Oh, thank you for coming and breaking our little hearts. So cute. Thank you. Agenda adjustments.
Okay, on the regular agenda, page 5, item 20, this is the update on county initiatives to address homelessness and public safety. This item will be heard at a time certain of 11:30. On page 12, item 62, this is a grant acceptance transportation with the Central Federal Lands Highway Division Arizona Federal Lands Access Program. Staff requests this item be removed from the agenda. On the addendum agenda, page 1, item 3, revisions to board policy C 3.19, and item 4, adoption of board policy C 3.21. These items will be heard prior to consideration of addendum item number 2. And on the addendum 2, page 1, item 1, executive session regarding differential water rates. This item will be heard at a time certain of 10:15. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there are no objections, we'll go ahead and incorporate those changes. And next we have item number 5 is the recognition of the We Are Gems quarterly recipients. And I will turn that over to Administrator Lesher. Yeah. Want to take it?
Sure.
Thank you all for being here today. As you know, we
couple times a year stop and take a moment to recognize some of our county employees who have really gone above and beyond. Every day, I think we have about 7,500 individuals who work in an extraordinary way to serve the people of Pima County. And we are dedicated to what we call We Are GEMS for accountable, respectful, ethical. And throughout the county, we have employers, supervisors, and other employees nominating county employees for special recognition. And today we have our GEMS for this quarter. We do, some are from the elected officials' office. They will be doing that part. Some work for some of the other deputies. But I have the honor today to recognize the first of our recipients, which is Mr. John Stuckey. John.
That's why you shaved.
People are wondering why John shaved today, so now we're understanding the deal. While John has been, I take these off, that's a mistake. John has been with the county for 29 years, but he joined us just about 2 years ago, almost three now, when we created a new office, which is a facility safety and security manager designed to make sure that everybody in the county is safe. And John, as the facility safety and security manager, is not only a really calm, steady presence at all of our board meetings where you've seen him and elsewhere, ensuring that not only all of our county employees, but the public who visits us is safe. He has led dozens of training for employees so that we are all better equipped to deal with incidents and emergencies should they arise. John, thank you. Thanks. And
I have the privilege of recognizing the employees from the Health and Community Services side of the house. And the first employee that we're going to recognize today is Byron Christopher. Byron is a relative newbie, come on up, who is dedicated to coming up with the best outcomes for our clients who want better work and educational opportunities. He's a caring, dependable, and patient individual who consistently lives the ethos of our department, which is to serve with heart and urgency. Thank you, Byron. Congratulations. Thank you.
And we'll scooch this way.
So the next two employees come from our Department of Public Health. And the first one is Adela Gonzalez. Adela is also a relative newbie to our department who has been a vital member of our immunization team at the Teresa Lee Clinic. Where is she? Oh, no stress. But really celebrate our team at T. Lee and our immunization team in particular for making our community a healthier community and for doing everything that they do in order to achieve that. The next individual from our health department is Myra Jeffries, and she is a veteran with our health department. She has been with us for 8 years. Welcome, Myra. Myra plays a critical role at the health department reducing the impact of overdoses. She is part of that critical team in community mental health and substance abuse that has really been leading the charge in terms of our implementation of harm reduction and prevention strategies. Congratulations, Myra. Thank you for being part of our team. Gracias. And turn it.
Oh, Francisco. Good morning. I'm Carmine DeBonis. I'm a Deputy County Administrator for the Public Works Department. So it's my pleasure this morning to recognize 3 employees from Public Works, and we're going to start with Steve Burklow. Steve. So Steve is with our Conservation Lands and Resources Department. So there's over 250,000 acres of lands that are managed by that department, open space and recreational lands. And Steve is a dedicated manager for our wells program. So he ensures the inventory of the wells that we have, the stock tanks, other water distribution systems. He's a professional, very respectful, working with colleagues, working with ranchers, members of the the public and other community partners that assist us in that goal of conserving our open space land. So, Steve, congratulations.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to recognize Mandy Chason. Hi, Mandy. So Mandy is in the area of personnel and personnel support for the Department of Parks and Recreation. So there's over 480 staff in that department, and Mandy does a super job in a high-paced environment, as you can imagine, with a large workforce. But even more importantly, and telling of Mandy's dedication, when her supervisor retired, Mandy stepped in not only to pick up the load, but to help transition a new supervisor into that role, and very much appreciated. So thank you so much, Mandy. And then I'd also like to invite Marco Diaz up, please. Good morning, Marco. So Marco's coworkers describe him as friendly, dependable, hardworking, and those are just a few of the adjectives that are used to describe him. So since 2002, he's been heading up our homeless encampment cleanup program, and so as you can imagine, he's with the Regional Flood Control District. The major water courses are a place where unhoused tend to populate, and Marcos goes in there with care and respect and assistance in providing outreach services to people who find themselves in that unfortunate position. So he's just a one-man team, an incredible force, and thank you so much, Marco.
The next two are county attorney's office. Laura, you've got, yes, these are your two individuals right here. I think you know them better than
Thank you. And a very good morning. My name is Laura Conover, and I have the honor of getting to work at the Pima County Attorney's Office. I'm going to point you today to two stars. We'll use the GEMS branding, treasures, especially in our violent crimes unit. Mark Hotchkiss, I've had the pleasure of promoting at least twice now, I think personally, and he's now the bureau chief. You see, all his fans are here, which I really, really appreciate as well. He's the bureau chief over all of violent crime at the county attorney's office. And Daniel Carmon, will you come down too? Legal secretary in the violent crimes unit, I think in particular to John Strader, who's here, along with, it's such an elite team. And I want to thank John, I think a nominator, and Baird Green came, who nominated Mark. I'll just say very, very briefly as to both these gentlemen that when I think about what they faced with the homicide spike in particular, that began in 2020, yes, they need to be front and center. Come on, gentlemen. We're about to get serious here. You know, homicide spike, right? And a homicide backlog that they inherited, and they just got to work. And when I think about Tucson breaking national records of recovering from that violent crime spike, I think about the TPD homicide team, absolutely, who is extraordinary. And then this is part of the elite team. Good morning to you. Yep. Thank you for that. And speaking of, that's actually exactly what we're talking about right now, is accountability. When we're talking about homicide in particular, and this is the accountability for those who would cause harm against our community. And the rule at the Pima County Attorney's Office is that you have to be a good attorney and a good employee, but you have to be a great human being. And these two gentlemen exemplify that. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. I am Suzanne Druby, your Pima County Assessor, and they've all heard me say it before. They get really sick of it, but my staff is amazing, and we are here today to honor one of them. I am honored to say that I consider this man to be a friend of mine, Diego Rocha. Diego is a key member of our IT staff. At the assessor's office, we have our own IT staff, and this man keeps the plane flying, as we like to say, in our office, and we could not be prouder to have him as part of our team. Thank you.
So thanks again, and maybe one last round of applause for the incredible folks. Gonna say you're gonna take just a moment to get pictures and then a break while everyone gets out.
Big picture in the back. Let's get together like we like each other. Because it's gonna be cozy. Tell us when. Are you cheesing?
Right now?
Oh, good. Okay.
We're doing great. We're doing great.
I know.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so all of us walk out and then the gym.
Yeah. Oops.
Thank you.
So those of you who are here to celebrate these gems, if you want to go out to the lobby, I think we're going to try to get a big group picture. Perfect. Thank you so much. Oh, Okay, we'll take a real brief, like 2 minutes to let everyone sort of clear out. Thank you all for being here. All right, we have a couple more. We have item number 6 is proclamations. I do want to remind the audience that there is a call to the audience moment where you can speak to the board, but any outbursts or interruptions will not be tolerated. So item number 6, unfortunately, Dr. Arnold couldn't be here from PEP, and so we're just going to move the item. So it'll be the proclamation proclaiming the day of Tuesday, November 12, 2024 to be Portable Practical Educational Preparation, Inc. Day for November 12th. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously, and I will be sure to get that proclamation to Dr. Arnold. The next one is a presentation, a proclamation to Scott Blades, Executive Director, Leslie Kahn, Board President, Arlon Colton, Board Treasurer, George Visacelli. Thank you so much. I'm like, George. Board member, Paul Sanchez, Jeff Literal, John Cosidine, and I'll have whoever's here can introduce themselves. So if I butchered your name, I apologize. Kathy Davis, all volunteers with the Tucson Interfaith HIV/AIDS Network, proclaiming the day of Thursday, October 17th, to be Tucson Interfaith HIV/AIDS Network Appreciation Day. And I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously 4-0. And I'll meet you down here in the front. Who would like to hold this? Somebody? I know. All right. So whereas the Tucson Interfaith HIV/AIDS Network, THON, was founded in 1994 and thus commemorates the 30th year of serving our community as a coalition of individuals, businesses, faith communities, and nonprofit groups, and whereas THON has a history of supporting people with HIV to live as well as possible of providing the leadership and engaging faith communities to confront HIV stigma, homophobia, and discrimination, of being an active proponent of love, advocacy for people living with HIV, and of engaging businesses and organizations to contribute their resources to build a stronger support network for people living with HIV. And whereas THON volunteers give their time, talents, and treasures to provide direct support from end-of-life care in the early years of HIV crisis to helping people with HIV live well today. And whereas THON expanded the scope of giving to support people with HIV, built partnerships and collaborations, and encouraged unprecedented numbers of volunteers over the past 3 decades to become involved in direct services for people living with HIV in Pima County. And whereas THON encourages HIV awareness, prevention, testing, and treatment, and provides opportunities for people living with HIV to find and share their voices. And whereas HIV continues to impact the lives of thousands of people in Tucson and Southern Arizona, and the need for THON's programs and services continues. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims Thursday, October 17th, 2024 to be Tucson Interfaith HIV/AIDS Network Appreciation Day, and encourages Pima County residents, businesses, faith communities, and nonprofit groups to take action to address HIV stigma and encourage HIV prevention efforts and contribute to support systems for people living with HIV, passed and adopted this 12th day of November, 2024. Thank you. Who would like to speak?
Thank you, Supervisors. Thank you to the people of Pima County, THON, as we commemorate 30 years of serving the community. We're just grateful to be part of a community that cares, a community that reaches out to support people in need. Most of our folks are living far below poverty level. They're, in addition to having HIV, have other health issues, and are marginalized in many ways. And THON, through our coalition of individuals, businesses, families, faith communities, nonprofit groups, provide support network that doesn't exist in most places in the country. And we partner with many agencies here, including the Health Department of Pima County, including the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation, El Rio, the University of Arizona Banner Peterson Clinic, to make sure that nobody is left behind and that everybody has the support they need. And we have amazing volunteers, including some of the folks right here and hundreds more who do this out of the goodness of their heart, and we appreciate the recognition from the Board of Supervisors. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Supervisors, for helping us to continue the work and to continue making sure that nobody is left behind. So thank you.
Do you want to take a moment and let everyone introduce themselves?
Hello, my name is Leslie Kahn, and I'm the board chair.
My name is Kathy Davis, and I'm on the HR committee.
My name is George Vizzicelli, and I'm a board member.
My name is John Constable, and I'm a volunteer.
Marlon Colton, I'm a volunteer. I'm the board treasurer and former Pima County planning director. So first time back in this room in a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Want to get a picture? It's going to take a picture right here. Let's come up a little. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Our next up, item number 8 is a presentation and proclamation to Professor Chad Shootman, Band Director, University of Arizona, proclaiming the day of Friday, November 15th, 2024 to be Pride of Arizona Day. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. Thanks. Yay. Do you want to come on up? Come on. Whoever's a U of A proud, you guys can come on up too. It would be so fun.
I'm a U of A grad. You want to support?
Yes. Come on up.
Anybody?
You support the U of A,
No,
you
you're
can
not.
come.
I'm a bobcat, not a
You're
wildcat.
that's right.
They're not puppies, but we got goodies.
Oh, nice. I know. Anyone want a puppy? Come on, did you see those faces? It's too much for me. Here, you want someone else?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. All right. All right. No, absolutely. Here, stand right here. Yes, you're good. You're perfect. Whereas the Pride of Arizona from the University of Arizona is the state's longest performing marching band, having started in 1902 as an ROTC unit comprised of 12 members. And whereas the Pride of Arizona has entertained, engaged, and elevated audience across Southern Arizona for more than 120 years, performing at community events, celebrations, and commemorations, and building a reputation on the concept of pride, performance, respect, integrity, discipline, and excellence. And whereas the Pride of Arizona has displayed those same characteristics over the years as it has represented the university and the entire community statewide on a national and international stages, delivering high-quality entertainment to audiences far and wide, including the first Super Bowl, President Jimmy Carter's inaugural parade, and even astronauts aboard the International Space Station. And whereas the 2024-25 Pride of Arizona, under the leadership of Professor Chad Shootman, boasts 295 members, the largest in the program's history, who make up a true cross-section of the university, representing more than 100 unique degree programs and majors. And whereas the Pride of Arizona was awarded the John Philip Sousa Foundation's coveted 2024 Sudler Trophy, which recognizes excellence and innovations in collegiate marching bands, positive contributions to the recipients' communities, and the program's historical impact on marching arts. And whereas the Pride of Arizona is just the 5th band west of the Mississippi to earn this honor, and the 34th band in total to bear the title of Sudler Trophy winner. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pima County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims Friday, November 15th, 2024 to be Pride of Arizona Day, passed and adopted this 12th day of November, 2024. Congratulations. Thank you.
Chair Grijalva, members of the board, thank you so much for this honor on behalf of generations of members of our organization, as this trophy represents generations of work. We thank you very much for this esteemed honor. Our students work tirelessly to bring Wildcat spirit to everything we do. They're great students, and to the point about a cross-section, we have one of our twirlers right over there who's in a completely different, see, so there you go. And so that's what truly makes this a unique and wonderful group of people to get to work with. They get the opportunity to work together with people that maybe they would never interact with, that don't see the world the same, and they learn how to lead and go out into the world and be upstanding, amazing human beings, and know how to work together with a shared vision. And that's a really wonderful thing about our program. But I'm incredibly excited and proud of the program as an alum myself, getting both of my degrees at the University of Arizona, a Tucson native. To be in the chair when we earn this award is a huge honor for me. Because I've been where they are, and literally, and it's a big honor for all of us, and it means a lot to us. And so we're giving the board all of our challenge coins. So make sure you get one of these. I know they're not puppies, but they are, they're okay. But we thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. You bet. You want to shoot? It's in my best, please. Thank you. You bet. My pleasure. Of course. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Right? That's amazing. Great. All right. Now we're on call to the public. Citizens attending meetings shall observe rules of propriety, decorum, and good conduct. Any person making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or who becomes boisterous while addressing the board, may be removed by the sergeant at arms if directed by the chair. Such person may be barred from further audience before the board. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stomping of feet, whistling, yells, or similar demonstrations shall not be permitted by the chair, who may direct offenders from the hearing room. With that, we have 5 people who've filled out a card. Corey Stevens, Emily Bressler, and Dave Smith. And if I've called you, if you want to come up, please do. Get the camera. You put a document there. Yeah.
First off, I'd be remiss if not to say we have been unburdened by what might have been. Now on to this unresolved issue with the sheriff. I pose to you this question. If you or I were to go to the airport with a loaded weapon in our suitcase, check our baggage, and not declare said weapon, what do you suppose would happen to you or me? Here is what I can imagine would happen. We would be detained. We would most certainly miss our flight because we would then go through the most extensive interrogation process and most likely intrusive body search ever. Not to mention confiscation of said weapon, and surely there would be a report of said incident. Not if you are Chris Nanos and you are above the law, which is exactly what happened last week at Tucson International Airport. As for Lieutenant Lappin, she was following jail policy, and had she denied access to the media, that would have been a dereliction of duty. As for Sergeant Aaron Cross, he was simply exercising his constitutional rights. The way in which the sheriff chose to place his campaign opponent on administrative leave is quite suspicious. How many cases of intimidation does the Pima County Sheriff's Department investigate based on appearance? How many calls do they get of a biker standing on the corner committing no crime because the person looks scary, or a homeless person perhaps holding up a sign? By the way, I think he should be investigated, the sheriff, for scaring thousands of children and impersonating a truly untarnished law enforcement officer like Woody. Because unlike Woody, Nanos has already been investigated by the FBI, the AG's office, and other outside agencies for his incompetencies and mismanagement of the Pima County Sheriff's Department. I would strongly urge you all to censor Sheriff Nanos, because what he has done to his political opponent is, in fact, election interference. And he has impersonated an officer himself, judging by this photo. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Bressler?
All right. Good morning, supervisors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Emily Bressler, and I'm here today because it's my 31st birthday, and I have the day off of work. Usually I wouldn't be able to attend, as most of these meetings fall during regular business hours. To make these sessions more inclusive and allow a greater number of working residents to participate, I'd like to suggest that you consider holding some board meetings in the evening. Adjusting this timing to accommodate various work schedules will lead to more community engagement and let residents share their perspectives directly to you. I also want to discuss Prop 312. While I don't agree with it, I recognize that it has passed. However, rather than responding to these challenges by enforcing measures that might criminalize homelessness, I'd like to propose an alternative solution that helps address this issue constructively. Currently, Pima County has limited regulations governing short-term rentals, such as Airbnb. These properties have been growing rapidly in our area, and without regulation, they can contribute to housing availability issues and other challenges within our community. Other cities in Arizona, like Flagstaff and Paradise Valley, have introduced licensing requirements to short-term rental properties, finding ways to operate within framework of SB 1350, which limits local government control over short-term rentals. Under SB 1350, municipalities can't outright ban short-term rentals or overly restrict their operations, but they can introduce specific requirements. For example, cities have been able to implement licensing and registration requirements, designate emergency contracts, enforce compliance with noise and nuisance laws, and require operators to follow public safety standards. Pima County could look at these models following the guidances of cities that successfully navigated SB 1350 to establish a regulatory framework that's both effective and legally sound. If we introduce such licensing requirements here, the additional revenue collected could be redirected to support programs within the Department of Justice Services, community workforce development, and other critical areas that assist our unhoused population. By proactively addressing the increase in short-term rentals, Pima County could support housing initiatives and provincially prevent lawsuits from property owners concerned about their property value. Taking steps like this would allow us to respond to the housing challenges within our community without resorting to measures that would unfairly penalize those struggling. We could build a more balanced approach that considered neighborhood concerns and funds meaningful support to people who need it. I encourage you to look into regulatory options for short-term rentals as a sustainable way to address this issue. Thank you again for your time in considering this path toward an inclusive, constructive solutions that benefits our entire community.
Thank you. Dave Smith, followed by Lane Myers and Keith Van Heineken.
Well, here it is a week later. We're still counting. This is one of the things I'm sure that we have bipartisan concern about, because I'm sure you're getting notified from people all around the country wondering what's going on in Arizona. I understand they're still doing their hand count confirmation that we finished on Saturday up in Phoenix 3 days later, and I think they're still doing it today. It's obviously, we need to come up with a better system. Hopefully now we can have a bipartisan effort to straighten this out, because no republic should sit with this ambiguity this long. It doesn't look as if certain balance of powers are going to change, so it's going to be incumbent for the next 4 years for everyone to sit down and talk about solutions and solve the real problems. We have an interesting problem in our jail, in our sheriff's department. These are things that we need to look at seriously, because we have all the deaths, we have the corruption, we have all these issues that we need to investigate. We have to find out what's going on. So you're going to be challenged with that, those of you that stay and those of you that will be replaced. And the other thing is that this county is growing, and we want it to be attractive for businesses. We want to have that kind of thing that so many people get up here and talk about. Our taxation keeps growing and growing. Our housing values keep being increased to increase our taxation. And yet there's no solutions being offered. There's no problems being solved. And I've talked about this before, but this is the thing we need is, as a group, you're going to have to solve real problems. And there's no way out of it, because your accountability is very serious, and we're not going away. Now, the thing is again, it's sad to see all the ambiguity and stress created by this amount of uncertainty in our election, because all it does is increase suspicion, fear, and anger. And these are the very things that we don't want to have in our society. So I challenge you over the next year and a half or two, because we're going to have another election in 2 years with the same entire resolve. Everybody's going to come at the Republicans, the Democrats, the Libertarians, and the Greens are all going to come at each other full speed. And this ambiguity, this length of time where we're wondering what is the actual count, what is the reality of it, and that only creates suspicion and fear and anger and distrust. So I know that you are limited by law, what things you can do statutorily, but again, these are the things that you need to look at. The jail, the funding, the sheriff's department, the recorder's office. We were not allowed to have observers in the early voting. This is the only county in Arizona that allowed no observers in the early counting voting centers. And that's something that just enhances our anger, our suspicion, and our doubts. So that's the challenge. It's in your court. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Lane Myers, followed by Keith Van Heinigen and Anastasia Satakis. And those are the last cards I have, so if anyone would like to bring forward another card, please do.
My name is Lane Myers, and I live at 6263 Copper, where I reside in Supervisor Gavala's head, rent-free. I'm here to speak about my ongoing prosecution for getting arrested for booing at the Tucson City Council meeting by the Pima County Attorney's Office. There was a similar case in Surprise that just adjudicated where a woman, Rebecca Massey, went to the meeting and was speaking about the attorney's salary being overpaid. She got removed. She was arrested on August 20th, and on October 23rd, her case was already dismissed by the justices. I was arrested June 4th, and as of today, I'm still waiting on trial in December for getting arrested for booing while others were clapping. Now, what I did here when I first came in could be considered more of a disruption than booing while others are clapping, and I didn't even mean to disrupt this. I didn't know this was all going on when I walked in. So I want to read something. This is the ruling from the judge, especially for you, Sam Brown, because you and Rebecca O'Brien are going to lose big time in court. I know you can't even look at me because you're a coward. In this case, defendant was charged with trespass in violation of ARS 13502 after a government official ordered her removal from a public city council meeting because she was allegedly violating a government policy. There are a few problems. That policy regulated not just speech, but political speech. It regulated not just the time, place, and manner of the speech, it regulated the content of the speech. In any constitutional law analysis, the government's action would trigger strict scrutiny. No branch of any federal, state, or local government in this country should ever attempt to control the content of political speech. Rankin versus McPherson. Government employees should not have been, in this case, the government did so in a manner that was objectively outrageous. Whatever differences may exist about interpretation of the First Amendment, there is practically universal agreement that a major purpose of that amendment was to protect the free discussion of governmental affairs. The defendant should have not faced criminal prosecution, not even once, for expressing her political views. The court agrees she should never face criminal prosecution for expressing her political views on that date at that time again, nor should she be forced to encounter any additional attorney fees should this matter be filed. It is ordered that this case is dismissed with prejudice in the interest of justice. So like I said, I got arrested at the Tucson City Council meeting, right? So that's not even Pima County's problem. But here's the problem. They sent it to them. And now it is your problem, and the lawsuit's been filed, and your name's on it, and your name's on it, because that's how it goes. They should have dismissed it in the interest of justice. So it wasn't Pima County's problem until your buddy Romero sent it over there and said, hey, get this guy. And so now I'm going to get you instead of you getting me. Have a nice one.
Keith Van Heinigen.
Okay, good morning. My name is Keith Van Heinigen. I've been a resident for a quarter century and a pain in the butt for 20 odd years. Hi, Matt. How you doing, Matt? Nice to see you, Matt. Oh, Matt's not there. Aren't any of you old enough to remember the Dupnik Nanos years that made us the illegal drug and illegal alien invasion corridor we are today? I think all of us were around for that. Sure, Rex was. Sylvia, were you here at that time? Steve, yes. Century Nanos, all you want, but Adelita's and Rex's children from TUSD reelected his butt. Will you build a new jail before this one crumbles, burns, develops mold or leprosy? Pima County bureaucrats are worse than the Marxist Democrats they serve. Give yourself another BS award. Yay, waste and fraud, yay. To thunderous applause and photo ops. Our local government is really the opposite of our friend. Steve Christie, thank you for standing in the way of an all-out tax assault. My wife says you're the only reason we haven't moved. That's pretty cool. When the last Republican is voted out, I'll leave. I fought this. I'm damn near dead. Thank you, Medical Society. This is 2 months out on hip replacement. It's fantastic. And that's a minor problem. The locked doors at the entry. That's a nice paranoid touch. It really is. Says a lot about every bureaucrat in this room. You are paranoid beyond belief. And that's the problem, because look how you treat us. The first board meeting after Donald is sworn in next year. I'll be here with bells on, and it'll be a laugh. Have a nice day. Bye, Matt. Where you at, Matt?
Anastasia Takis, followed by Mary. Thank you, Dolciami.
Our republic is now once restored with thundering applause. But for the fact that this county recorder's office cannot, again, get their act together is completely appalling and disgusting. What a lot of Democrats want to say is democracy, we call a constitutional republic. Democracy may be about the voting, but it is a constitutional republic still. There are rules and laws that need to be followed, and the rules and laws are not being followed. I have tracked the number counts for the last week since voting ended. And I also want to say that there has been active disenfranchisement of voters at the recorder's office from people who went to vote there. Quite a few of my friends had gone to the recorder's office on Country Club to go vote. And they were attempted to be turned away on Friday, the last day of early voting, from two thugs in vests at the recorder's office telling them to leave and go away, and they should come back on Saturday. Let me see. They weren't going to be open on Saturday because, oh, it's going to be 45 minutes long to wait, and you guys need to go home. Thereby disenfranchising individuals from voting in person on the last day of voting. So what? They went to go vote on Friday. What does it matter to the recorder's office what they did? They went there to go cast their vote legally, and yet they were being attempted to be turned away. As of right now, since last week, we were stuck at 3,300 early ballots. We are now at, 2,500 ballots left to count. Really? We have 7,100 provisionals to go. A total of clean ballots of 53,000 ballots to count since last week, you guys. Florida is shaming all of you. Florida has shamed this county recorder who has failed her job and not done what she was supposed to do. One of the last things I'm going to say is the fact that Matt Hines has no business trying to call for a censure on somebody when he should have been censured during COVID for calling the entirety of Pima County who didn't get the jab murderers, children, typhoid Marys. Mind you, this was done on an open public forum that everybody in the world saw. And he was calling for licenses to be revoked of obstetricians if they didn't jab up their patients, their pregnant patients. Yeah, don't throw the stone, Matt. You should look at yourself, and all of you failed in censuring him.
Mary Dolciami, and Mary is our last speaker. If anyone else wishes to speak, please put in a card.
Hi, Mary Dulciani. I apologize. I wasn't planning on speaking. I don't have anything prepared, and I'm getting over allergy stuff, so I apologize. I'm a retired deputy from the Pima County Sheriff's Department, retired 3 years ago, have been through many election cycles, and I have never seen this except the last time Nanos ran, where he attacks his opponents that he's running against. For taxpayers, I just want to make you aware that he's over budget. I know you guys know that. Aware of the fact how much it costs for a lieutenant and a sergeant to be paid to stay home, especially when there was no allegation their job performance was an issue. Sorry, apologize. And in 2016, when Nanos ran, I was working off duty in the city at a private job for the labor picnic, which is a Democratic function. If you're aware, some of you may have gone and spoken there. They have a picnic every year. They hire 5 deputies to work in uniform at that function. While I was working there as an acting supervisor, 2 deputies showed up in uniform at that function. I was confused. Why are these guys here? They're not on my squad. So I asked them, what are you doing here? Oh, we're sent here to hand out some bling, fly the flag for the sheriff. I don't know who sent them. I reported it. It's in the city. I said, what, Community Resources sent you? No, we got pulled out of patrol in San Javier District on the taxpayer's dime at the behest of somebody from the Sheriff's Department. During work, totally out of line. That's clearly a violation. I have to be straight up. I was out as soon as I heard about what happened to Aaron Cross. I went out and put on my old green pants and my old tan boots, and I held a sign up. I look like a deputy, probably not anymore, but I wasn't wearing any insignia that says I'm a cop. And everybody already knew he was a cop because he was on TV a week before telling everybody that I'm a sergeant with the Pima County Sheriff's Department, and we don't want Nanos. So there shouldn't be no surprise, and it's not against the law. He has a constitutional right to hold a sign that says, we don't want Nanos. And she has a right to let him do that. She can't, Heather Lappin should not have been punished for allowing him his constitutional rights. So neither one of them should be getting paid by the taxpayers of Pima County to stay home. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if we have no other people who wish to speak at the call to the audience, I'll go ahead and close the call and ask my colleagues if they wish to respond to a criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. Okay, thank you. All right. Executive session is at 10:15, and so we'll skip executive session and go to the Board of Supervisors sitting as other boards. Item 11, the Flood Control District. Can we take, item 11. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. Item number 12 is a contract for a Santa Cruz River pedestrian bridge. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Christie.
could county administration or administrators give us the benefit of some sort of an explanation of how the funding source for this works? It's regional flood control and through the regional control district tax levy. But it's kind of confusing, a little bit convoluted. How does this funding work?
Administrator Lesher.
Thank you. Deputy County Administrator DeBonis.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, as you noted, it comes from the Regional Flood Control District tax levy, so those dollars go into operational expenses of the Regional Flood Control District as well as the capital improvement project that they deliver. So this bridge is part of the current annual capital improvement project list that was approved by the board as part of the budget. It provides access across the banks of the Santa Cruz. There's currently a significantly large gap that prevents users of the loop from getting from one side to the other along the Santa Cruz, and this is to help fill in that gap.
Madam Chair, Mr. DeBonis, just to be clear, because this has a transportation element in it, can any of this money, excuse me, this being dedicated for this project, can any of this money be directed to repairing any county roads, maintenance or repair?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, no, they cannot.
And that is because?
So the flood control district levy is intended for improvements to flood control assets. So the Santa Cruz River is one of the major waterways. The basis of the loop itself is for access for maintenance for the flood control district to the Santa Cruz River and the other major water courses, the Rito, the Pantano. So if you remember back in the 1983 floods, significant property loss occurred. There was damage to residences and businesses. There was loss of life. The flood control district needs to access those major water courses during flood events. And so that is the primary purpose of the path that follows the 140-mile stretch of the path that follows the major water courses. So this is a flood control specific improvement, not a transportation improvement. Although there are secondary uses, which are the recreational amenities for pedestrians and cyclists and equestrians, it's not eligible for use for transportation road repair.
So just to be clear, Madam Chair, Mr. DeBonis, that there is no possibility that any of this money could be diverted towards the repair and maintenance of county roads?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, no, it cannot.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Item number 13 is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Memorandum of Understanding. This is, I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion?
Chair Grijalva.
Supervisor Scott.
Question for either you or the clerk. What's the difference between item number 13 and item number 22?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, they're the same items, but you are sitting as different boards to address. One is flood control, one is the Board of Supervisors.
Got it. Thank you. And then question, Ms. Lesher, that either you can field or ask Mr. DeBonis to answer. There is, in Section 5 of the Memorandum of Understanding, a reference to the implementation plan that's going to be developed between the county and the Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm sure that plan is not going to come back to the board for review or approval, but would still like to see it, just to see which entity is going to be doing which projects, and also would like to see the annual report that is mentioned, I think, in the same section. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, you have a motion and a second. I would like to say that specifically for this MOU with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, it will enable the county and our regional flood control district to work with the federal agency toward the creation of a Santa Cruz River urban national wildlife refuge. This effort will further protect the river and its invaluable riparian habitat for wildlife to thrive and for ourselves and future generations to enjoy. The Santa Cruz River is dry over much of its course, but it is the reason humans inhabit Tucson and Pima County. It's provided sustenance for our indigenous forebears for many centuries. It now flows in 3 perennial stretches, and there is a potential for more, and a potential for this effort will greatly enhance. And so I have supported this effort from my earliest knowledge of it, and I hope that you'll join me in approving this vital step in protecting and enhancing the Santa Cruz with the official federal authority in the Santa Cruz River Urban Wildlife Refuge. So with that, I'll have a motion, a second. Any other discussion?
Chair Grijalva, before you vote, just for the record, Supervisor Hines has joined the meeting.
Thank you. Motion is second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. And I guess we could have done 22 at the same time, but we'll just skip that. We won't chit-chat on that one. We have item 14 is the removal and replacement of the Pima County Flood Control District covenant, and that is actually 14 and 28. So I'll go ahead and move both of those items.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. And It's the Library District Board, item number 15. This is an award to provide book leasing services. I'll go ahead and move the item for sake of discussion.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. I do have a question about the lease versus buy. I understand that what they're trying to do is address the number of patrons that go into the library wanting like a very popular book, not having to buy as many, and then leasing them and sending them back. But we do have a lot of school libraries in town. We have the Friends of the Library, and so this is a $500,000, and it with 4 one-year renewal options. So I do have some questions about that and why we're doing this versus just buying the books in paperback. And Mr. Lesher, Dr. Garcia.
Chair Grijalva, the way that we meet the demand of our patrons at the library is increasingly complex. We have 3 main ways of doing that: through our digital offerings, which are immensely popular, now constitute about more than half of the checkouts that we do, the physical collection, and then we are continuously faced with the issue of particular items that are very, very popular. And that popularity is difficult to predict. And the market, of course, makes those offerings more expensive when that popularity goes up. So the solution that we have looked for is a solution that many libraries across the country do, which is to lease books for a period of time. Understand that the physical books that we own only last for about 20 checkouts or so before they have to be retired. And so this is a way of being able to meet a patron need and still be able to do so kind of within the budget.
So this means that once they're used and have like 20 checkouts, then if it's a leased book, they'll refresh it and send us a new one and not charge any additional amount?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Item number 16 is authorizing Finance and Risk Management Director to execute Library District donation documents, resolution number 2024-LD2. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
I'm curious, why now all of a sudden is this issue coming before the board? Did we have nothing in place before? And if there was nothing in place before, why was there nothing in place before? And what seems to be the driving force at this point in time to address this?
Administrator Leisure.
And Supervisor Christie, that we've, in going through and looking at all of our administrative directives and documents, we've recognized that we believe that there may be some gaps. You're going to be looking at it later when we look at a naming policy. And there has never been an opportunity for any kind of specific document that would authorize the finance director to receive money for the trust, for the library district from donations. We have it for many other opportunities if funds are coming in, and for the director of finance to actually receive those documents and those dollars. This is just formalizing what may have been practiced but has not been a specific procedure of the board.
Madam Chair and Ms. Lesher, has there been a problem?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, the specific problem, we have not had a problem bringing in those dollars. We have what I believe to be occasionally lack of a variety of overriding documents throughout in many ways. We haven't had a problem yet that's causing this. We hope that there will never be a problem if we get this in place now.
And one last question, Madam Chair. How was this brought forward? I mean, was it through the library advisory board or from county administration that all of a sudden we've got a deal into this?
It is through the finance department. It is when dollars are looking to come into the department. It was when we began to look at what are the authorizing documents that have been approved by the board that would allow the finance director to receive those funds. And we did not have a formal policy, which is why we're bringing it to the board.
Thank you, Ms. Lesher. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Sitting as the Board of Supervisors, item 17 is approval of the consent calendar. I'll move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. Item number 18 is the amended Board of Supervisors meeting schedule. This is to add a special meeting on November 21st. This meeting will be held at 9 a.m. virtually. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion.
Madam Chair,
Supervisor Christie.
with all of the issues that have been outlined and called to the public, as well as in the media and the press and throughout the community, I'm wondering, is the canvas going to be ready in time? Is this something that we're going to be up against a deadline without all of the votes tallied and the proper completion of the ballots taken care of with tabulation?
Sure.
It seems like we should at least address that and not put this in stone and canvass something that's not being ready to canvass.
Administrator Lesher.
Chair Goodell and Supervisor Christie, the reason we've asked for that day is that is the last day that we are allowed legally by in state statute to approve the canvass. The elections directors indicated we believe the last of the current ballots with her will be counted on Wednesday. There are still some provisionals to be verified and to be processed for final counting, but we legally have to have it done by that day. That is the last opportunity to approve the canvass.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm, again, at the rate it's been going with the outstanding votes at this point in time, after all this length of time still tabulating them, it doesn't leave one with a great sense of security that the final tabulation will be completed. What's Plan B if it's not?
It will be completed.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
I'll just to cover, we have item number 10 on the regular agenda, and then addendum 1 and addendum 2 each have an executive session item there. And so I'll go ahead and move all of those. Supervisor Scott seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. So we'll be in recess out here while we do executive session, and we'll come back as soon as we're done. Thank you. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. We're back in session. So on the agenda, regular agenda, item 10, that was just a discussion item, no action. And then addendum item number 1, executive session. I'll go ahead and make a motion to move forward as discussed in executive session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. Oh, well, can't discuss, sorry. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. And then addendum 2, executive session. I'll go ahead and move forward that we move forward as discussed in executive session.
Second.
And have a second from Supervisor Scott. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. So if it's okay with you all, we have a couple people here for the hearings. At the end, 63, hang on a second, sorry. 63 and 64. 63 is a hearing rezoning ordinance number 2024-15. And this one? Oh, and we do have Kevin Wolford. You want to speak on the item? Okay. Yes.
First, I want to congratulate the supervisors on your recent victories last week. Rex Scott, Matt Hines, Steve Christie, and Adelita Grijalva.
Thank you.
He helped me learn how to pronounce it.
Thank you. Very kind.
Okay, it's been 4 months since the July 2nd Board of Supervisors meeting when this panel voted to approve my rezoning request. And that's a long time ago, so I just wanted to quickly summarize my situation to refresh any memories. This is a 6-acre rectangle, and I live in a home on the northeast corner. It is currently zoned SR1. My current intention is to keep 1 acre for my wife and me and sell the remaining portion of the property. In order to divide the property into smaller lots than 3.1 acres, it has to be rezoned. My request is to change my zoning to CR1 so that it matches the zoning of all the properties which surround me. My neighbor on the northeast corner, my neighbor on the southeast corner, and my neighbor to the south have all expressed a desire to buy portions of my property. And the good news is that they don't intend to build on it. They simply want to add land to their lots. And my neighbor to the west side of Bonanza already has 1 acre of my property on a contingent contract. So and the good news is his intention also is not to build on it, but just to keep it natural. Of course, rezoning has to happen first. So thank you all for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your consideration on this item.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? So I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move to approve ordinance number 2024-15.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. And item number 64 is a hearing rezoning. Is anyone here to speak in opposition of this item? Okay, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move to approve resolution number 2024-61.
Second.
And a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. So if we go back to the agenda, the next item, item number 19, I believe is going to go longer than maybe the 6 minutes that we have allocated. So if it's okay and if everyone is ready, can we move forward with item number 20 a little early? Yes? Okay. So item number 20 had a time certain of 11:30, and it's an update on county initiatives to address homelessness and public safety. County Administrator Lesher.
Thank you very, very much, Chair Grijalva. I will defer to the team, and they will keep it brief. Thank you.
You got it. Chair Grijalva, Administrator Lesher, members of the board. I'd like to just give an update on the Transition Center and where we're at after a year of operations. There's a presentation that, trying to get up, just so we can reference, please. You can go to the first slide afterwards. Thank you. As of year to date, we have served over 1,100 individuals from August to August, where one of the primary functions was to reduce the amount of people that are getting rearrested. Please note that much of this population that you see here, where we're tracking data, are misdemeanor offenses, right? And so you see the controlled group of 28% rearrested down to 10%. Well, that's an average over the course of the year. We've seen as low as 3% in 1 month. For some of those people that are rearrested. But again, this is just the aggregate report. It's good to note that this resulted in 158 fewer bookings, which results in a savings to the municipalities of over $80,000 in booking fees that happen as a result of that. And 99% of the individuals receive services. You've heard me talk about this, but I want to give just kind of a quick snapshot. If you can go to the second slide. Next. Thank you. Just to highlight operations, we have 4 navigators that we fund as a county, along with one from the city. There's a second one in recruitment that's been happening. We're supposed to have 2 there. Please note that one of our goal is to operate 7 days a week, and on weekends. At this point, with this staffing, we're still only able to operate weekdays. We've had positive feedback from TPD, from businesses, from our judges in the initial appearances, who are very supportive of the work that's happening there. Some of our impacts include some of the warrant resolutions when people have called from the city of Tucson and some of the encampment cleanups to really provide some of that outreach there, as well as people are dropping in. Family support for people who want to get a little bit more information on what they do if some of their folks are incarcerated. And equally important is we had enhanced virtual services, which is super important for people that want to see initial appearances. Next slide, please. Some of our priorities for the second year or entering year 2 is just sustainability. A lot of it's funded with ARPA, so we have to look really closely at our funding mechanisms for next year to see how we prioritize some of this work. Expanding weekend hours. Part of the expansion of weekend hours are not just the obvious, but it also allows our ability to work with initial appearance judges who are eager to kind of help and assist, but it has to be open 7 days a week for them to create some parity in that work. Expanding emergency shelter options is going to continue to be super important for us because, as you know, people who are leaving the vicinity are still looking for shelter. Although we have good connections, that still continues to be a challenge. And then continue to look at outside data evaluation for this system. You see a internal evaluation in the report, but we want some validation from a third party if we can make that happen as well. And then last slide. That's just, I won't read it to you, but just a little bit of program highlights from some of the folks that have visited and kind of some of the impact it has made. We submitted a full report last week for your review as well, and this is just encapsulate a brief highlight of what's happening there in the Transition Center for year to date. So thank you, and any questions from the board will entertain.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Christie.
Just quickly, you can, it's kind of a little bit nebulous as to how you can do it, but the folks that you are sending into the transition center and through the navigator process and all that, are these folks who have actively been involved in criminal activity, or had they just been in that activity, I mean, such as vandalism, theft, public lewdness or whatever, as opposed to just living out in a wash?
Yes.
What type of criminality has been involved in this?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, the vast majority of folks are being shepherded through the transition center via our pre-trial, pre-booking module, meaning they've committed a misdemeanor offense or have been convicted of an offense, have been charged with an offense that they're still awaiting trial for. So the majority of them are misdemeanor type crimes, as you noted, nuisance crimes, petty theft, things that are not felony related. So you see
trespassing.
Trespassing is part of that as well. Part of the trespassing piece is some of our TPD folks are looking to work with pretrial to get some zone restrictions. That was an early conversation we had with the board, and that continues to be a vehicle for that as well.
And Madam Chair, if I may, the location of these individuals that are going through this process, are they mostly in the city or in the county?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, the majority of folks coming to the jail are coming from the city.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. I just want to compliment Deputy Administrator Holmes and Director Vesley and all of the individuals that I met also, some of them when I went and toured the transition center. I mean, this is preliminary data. It's been a year, but this says to me that we're on the right track and that we really can make a big dent in helping those individuals that really are here for misdemeanors, shouldn't be in the jail, and we can try and help them. So congratulations and job well done.
Chair Grijalva.
Supervisor Scott.
I also want to thank everybody on our staff for all of the notable successes at the Transition Center. And we know that you've got some long-term goals in terms of expanding its operations. When can the board expect to hear some kind of proposal from staff as to what it will take to expand hours and expand operations?
Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Scott, if I may, I can't give you a specific date, but I can tell you what we've been looking at is because of our need to rotate off of ARPA, it is an active part of our conversations related to the budget. So we will be bringing back to the board some initial conversations about the budget later this year or early next year, and we'll provide those dollars at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Grijalva. Wanted to also ask, I sent an email back on October 24th asking that the next time that we have this recurring item on homelessness, that we also discuss the board's statement that we would like to see the mission annex used as a place for the provision of services to the larger homeless community, and perhaps use some of the lessons that we have gotten from the operation of the transition center. I wonder if we could get an update as to where things stand with the work at that facility.
Sure. Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, as you know, we had opened that facility up to test some of the waters as a cooling center. During that time, we had many individuals who were stopping by for justice-related services. So it still remains in the community a somewhat of a hub or an understanding of being a hub, just because a lot of the paperwork that's still being supported through some of our jurisdictions still has that location as a place to go to watch initial appearance and those types of things. We have been actively pursuing some pretty competitive grants in the ability to create some shelter space at that location, specifically for people who are coming out of the criminal justice system. Not as an open shelter, but as a shelter for folks that are coming out of either the transition center or out of being felony arrested from the jail as well. That continues to be an area that we're pursuing. We know, based upon the limited time that we had it open during the cooling center hours, that there is a lot of interest in that space, but to operationalize it at the scale that we want, particularly as we're starting to house people, that's going to require some fairly robust investments, and that's kind of why we're hoping that we can partner with the city of Tucson to see what kind of resource they may have to put in that space. I know a lot of the folks that are coming, as Supervisor Christie mentioned, are coming from the city of Tucson, right? So we'd like to see some support from our other local municipality to help create that space necessary. But I think as the big vision is starting to unfold, it's become clear to us that it would be great to use that as a respite center for folks who need a couple days to stay as they're coming out of either incarceration from the jail or leaving the transition center, and without a necessity for them to go back to where they may have gotten in trouble the first time.
Okay. I'm glad that you were specific about the kind of sheltering, like any kind of sheltering services that are going to happen there, because that area is a very stressed area already. There is 2 mobile home communities right across the way, one of them for older individuals. And so I really don't want there to be like a just blanket drop-in center there. I think that, I understand the need for that type of facility, but I would have some real concerns about having that kind of facility there. And especially considering some of the talks that we've had, and again, a lot of it has to do with whether we have the resources to do it, is having like a hub of services that are available that we know that a lot of our community members need. And so when I think it was the first time I visited, Kate was at the front desk and somebody came in with something like they were a victim of a crime, and a TPD officer had literally just handed this form to them moments before, and they walk in and it's like, the only reason why we're here is it was the first day of opening this cooling center. So in the meantime, I know that we're going to have a need shortly for, with some really cold temperatures in our community. Are we thinking about opening up that space again as sort of a warming center? Because I think that we're going to need at some point some sort of the deep freeze. That's one of the issues that I think that they've had in the past, is where we can get people out from some extreme cold.
Sure, that's something we can explore as we work in partnership with our departments who kind of run those operations, to see if that's a location that's operational and if we have the staffing for that, but it makes sense.
Well, I know the Salvation Army, like we get some extra help when it's a deep freeze. So it's just more like they usually need the space. And again, this isn't a permanent solution, but just for those times where it gets really cold.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Supervisor Scott.
Chair Grijalva, thank you for saying what you just did, because it prompts me to ask Mr. Holmes to follow up. And could you delineate some of the topics of discussion that are occurring between the city and the county in terms of the use of that space? I know you said that there are ongoing discussions, but I'd like to get a better sense of what's being discussed.
Yes, Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott. Many of the conversations are twofold. Now, it's split into 2 areas. One is specific discussions with TPD. TPD, in our conversation with Chief Kazmar, is very interested in making better utilization of that space and making better utilization of the transition center. I think it's a kind of this isn't even a 2-part kind of work in progress. Again, we're making some inroads with TPD on better utilization of the transition center. There's more recent conversations in the community meeting that Ms. Vesley held, where you had a lot of interest from community members there on what was happening after the year, with the year-end report. Equally important is there were TPD upper staff there, management who was there, who had really have that epiphany on why this is going to be a really good place for them to make better utilization. I had mentioned maybe 2 meetings back, Supervisor Scott, that much of the strategy has been cite and release, which doesn't get people into having discussion with some of our staff. And so there's greater interest in that area. And the reason why I preface it with that first step in the transition center is that until we get kind of a good partnership with TPD and the transition center, I think that part two into the Mission Annex to be able to grow that is kind of that work in progress, right? And so I see that as a kind of a part B to that. I know there's some conversations happening with Superior Court, particularly with pretrial services, to see if they can relocate there over time, right? So that conversation is to also provide those type of one-stop kind of shopping place for people who really need that kind of support. Going back to more specific with the city, outside of TPD, there are conversations of interest to make some investments from some of their housing grants to really make utilization of the annex and maybe even move some of the funds from other areas or other properties that they're looking at to maybe make an investment into the annex. The piece that we're still kind of having more discussion is what Chair Grijalva mentioned, is that we really want to make that more purposeful for justice-involved people and not just a drop-off for people that are coming out of encampments. I think there's a strained community there. I think just making it another shelter, I'm not sure is going to have the impact as much as if we tie it more closely to some of the work we're already doing in the criminal justice area and make that a proof point for us in the future for more larger grants and sustainability. If that answers your questions.
Ask one other follow-up question.
Sure.
When the Office of Housing Opportunities and Homeless Solutions was formed, there was reference to the need for development of a strategic and continuous improvement plan. And we're coming up on almost the 1-year anniversary of the formation of the office. And it seems to me that some of the topics that Mr. Holmes was just talking about might factor into that kind of comprehensive plan. Do we know, Ms. Lesher, where we are with the development of that plan and when there might be something to present to the board?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, again, I don't have a date. I know we were looking, would it be at the December meeting? We've been looking at what that 1-year report might look like, so we can shoot Steve.
So, Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, one of the conversations, I'm going to take a step back from that and talk a little bit because we don't necessarily have a date. One of the conversations that we are having right now is, prior to getting some of this strategy in place, is that we're really focusing on alignment and coherence in our systems right now, which seems to be where we're spending a lot more of our efforts. When I say alignment and coherence, I'm talking about just our internal flow of how we're working together.
Our county systems.
County systems needs prioritization before we can look kind of systemically at this. And so one of the things that we are prepared to have a broader conversation is, what does alignment and coherence look like in our own system prior to unrolling a more strategic effort regionally, and you'll see more of that at the next presentation as a precursor to getting feedback on what a more larger strategic plan could look like.
Thank you. And then that was going to be my last question, but then you prompted another one, Mr. Holmes. Ms. Lesher, would you then recommend that the board not look at a study session or a series of study sessions until we get that report that Mr. Holmes is recommending in December?
Yes, Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Scott, I would recommend we at least have let me figure out exactly what date you're going to get it, and then we can look at when we can schedule meetings around that.
Thank you.
Let's keep you
Madam
posted.
Chair?
Yep.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Christie.
You talked about the report that's coming up, and you talk about alignment and outreach and things of this nature. I think it's also important in that year report that was referenced earlier, that we get a sense of how the community and neighborhoods and businesses are either benefiting or not even feeling the effects of this. And I would certainly hope that they would be engaged in that report before any kind of final edition was presented. I think it's important to hear from those that are the most affected by the criminal activities surrounding homelessness, that we need to know if our efforts, your efforts, have been effective in achieving the goals that businesses, neighborhoods, communities are looking for. And one resource that I think would be very optimal in including in that report and including in the creation of that report would be the Tucson Crime-Free Coalition. And you could get the feedback we're looking for, I think, as a business community to see how effective the efforts have turned out to be.
Thank you. Director Darland, anything you want to add, or were you just here in case of answering a question that came up? Well, thank you all for being here. Appreciate you. Thank you. We have had a request to move up, just because it's a short presentation, and we have staff here and visitors. Item number 25, and then we'd go back to the regular agenda, if that's okay. It's Arizona Commerce Authority presentation, and it's a presentation by Aaron Lorandos, Digital Equity Program Manager, and Kelly Crucier, Community Engagement Manager, State Broadband Office, Arizona Commerce Authority, to provide an update on the broadband equity access and deployment and digital equity programs.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you. And Director Simon is here too. Hi, thank you. All right, please.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to Michelle Simon for arranging this for us. We really appreciate it. As Supervisor mentioned, my name is Kelly, and this is Aaron. We're here to quickly, in now 6 minutes and 50 seconds, tell you about BEAD and digital equity. So if we could go to the next slide, please. We have been trying to visit every county in the state to talk about BEAD and digital equity. BEAD is the Broadband Equity and Access Deployment Program, and digital equity Aaron will speak about. We'll go to the next slide, please. And the next one. Okay, so quick overview on BEAD. I'm sure everyone is familiar with it, but again, it's the Broadband Equity and Access Deployment, and this is historic funding from the federal government. There was about $42 billion that came out from the administration, and that is to help essentially connect every home in the United States. So the goal here is to connect homes that do not have access to broadband or high-speed internet. So this was historical funding, and what is also historical about it, not only the amount, but the fact that it is to the household. So this is not middle mile, this is to the specific household. And then again, the amount that Arizona was awarded was almost $1 billion. This is a lot of money, and we are aware this is taxpayer dollars, so this money is taken seriously, and we have been working for years to map out the plan for how this is going to work in Arizona. And our plan was just approved in August of this year. So our initial proposal, volume 2, is what it's called, and we'll go to the next slide, please. All right, so who is it for? Again, this is at the household level, and also it's community anchor institutions, and that's things like schools and libraries and hospitals, places where people can go to use internet or Wi-Fi, usually for free. And we want to make sure that those are included in this plan as well. And then those who have, again, the household, but the focus here is for little or no access to high-speed internet. So that would be either unserved or underserved. And then we'll go to the next slide, please. This is a screenshot of Pima County, and in Pima County, there are almost 21,000 eligible households, meaning 21,000 homes in the county that are either unserved or underserved. And we'll go to the next slide, please.
Pardon me for interrupting, but
yes.
Can you define those terms?
Yes,
what's the distinction
there is a
between
slide
uncertain?
coming up. That's
Okay,
what I was
good,
trying to get to it. Yes, it's a very good question, and it should have been there. So the timeline as far as when it happens, you can see we're getting toward the end of this particular timeline. We are in late fall. We are about to open the application window. It will open up the day before winter solstice, so we're still calling it late fall. December 20th is when that will actually open. So right now, we are actually in pre-registration. And then the next slide, I believe, is the one that might have unserved. It does. Okay, so here we go. Your unserved and underserved. So this is based on speed and latency, but your unserved locations have 25 by 3. So that's what, 25 down and 3 up. So 25 download, 3 megabits per second upload. And underserved locations is 100 by 20. So 100 down and 20 up.
What is latency?
Latency is like yes, like a delay. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, remember that, yeah. It makes me think of AOL, yes. All right, and so then again, how does this happen? So again, we identify, and this has been years in the making, identifying who is unserved and underserved. And when I say who, we're talking about locations, not people. We're talking about homes, household locations that should have access to internet, high-speed internet, but do not. And then the way that it works is ISPs and even counties can apply to be subrecipients of that funding. So we have that almost $1 billion, and the ISPs, nonprofits, counties can apply for that funding and demonstrate what they are going to do to serve those unserved and underserved locations. And then it does mention here again, eligible community anchor institutions. And again, they're enhancing the access for the vulnerable populations.
And the connection speed for community anchor institutions would be a gig. Sorry. The connection speed for community anchor institutions, the threshold is significantly higher because more people are using it. So that's at a gig symmetrical, up and down.
And now it's Erin's turn.
Oh,
Digital
that was
equity.
very convenient timing there. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. My name is Erin Larandos. I am a librarian like Michelle Simon used to be, so thank you for inviting us into this space. If we could go to the next slide, please. We like to talk about, one more slide, please. We like to talk about if the BEAD program is creating the road that people will be driving on to access the internet, then digital equity is driver's ed. It's all of the resources, the conversations around affordability and accessibility that go into accessing a resource that people may not have had access to before. So it actually established 3 separate programs. I'm not going to go into detail on these right now. Just know that here in Arizona, we've been allocated just over $16 million to enact the goals and objectives that we laid out in our statewide digital equity plan. Let's go to the next slide, please. One more slide, please. So in our, one more, thank you. In our digital equity plan, we had to address the barriers faced by various covered populations. This is Congress' way of talking about people who have historically been less able to access these resources. Maybe the resources aren't built for them. Maybe there are special considerations, language barriers, folks living with disabilities, et cetera, that play into this. Next slide, please. The most important thing when you look at that list of people is that here in Arizona, over 80% of all Arizonans fall into one or more of these groups. So when we're talking about barriers that are faced by members of these covered populations, we really are talking about barriers faced by ourselves, our families, our communities. Next slide, please. In the digital equity plan, we've laid out a number of goals and objectives that we feel will help break down those barriers to access and adoption. We've lumped them into some overarching buckets that include support for local planning efforts. So at the county level, we want everybody to look like Pima County, okay? Pima County is primed for this piece of the puzzle because of all of the work that the Office of Digital Inclusion has done. And we want to be able to support that work in other counties as well. We also want to leverage and expand digital navigator programs. So these are in-person, often ways for those members of those communities to gain the skills that they have lacked up until this point. And also considering telehealth access points and digital health navigators as well. And last but not least, overall, we want to increase opportunities for digital literacy upskilling tailored to the needs of the covered population. So for example, that might look like language, classes hosted in other languages or in other formats that are accessible to folks living with disabilities. Next slide, please. This, actually, I'm going to, no, you're good, right there, perfect. I'm going to give this part back to Kelly, but before I do, I just want to say that, you know, this is also historic in that the federal government is looking at the access as well as the barriers to access all in one pile, right? And it's awesome that we're all doing this work in the same office, and being able to hear the needs at the local level is going to be very important as we move into implementation. So thank you for your time. Real quick.
Okay, and we're just going to wrap it up here with the official thank you slide. But this one is our Stay Connected. For those who are watching from home or in the audience, you can use that QR code to sign up for our newsletter, for our updates. We have emails that go out, and right now they're going out weekly because, again, we are in this pre-registration phase. So if entities are interested in applying, that pre-registration portal is open. We're having guidance webinars, information about how to do this. Those are being posted on the website after they're recorded. But that slide right there will take you to where you can sign up to receive those updates. And then the next slide It has our contact information, which is our phone number and our email. That email it goes to everyone in the office. So there's a very good response rate to that, and it has everyone's eyes on it. And I think that last slide is just to say thank you for your time. We have 7 seconds to spare. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. I added some time.
I saw that.
I
Yes,
did.
thank you.
I
Don't talk quite that fast.
thank you so much, and thank you to Director Simon for inviting you all here, because I think that we do have some questions sometimes when it comes up, like what is this going to look like in our community? And so I think more information is better. I am the daughter, wife, and sister to librarians. And so arguably my mom, who's retired, is like, I'm still a librarian. I'm like, I know you are.
That's right.
It's not like a teacher, like once you are, you always are. And that's how I feel. But does anyone have any questions specific? Supervisor Lee.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva, and thank you for your presentation. On the one of your slides, you talked about rural, and those that are probably underserved or have very, I guess the term was underserved. But so in District 3, the majority of District 3 is rural, and I know that Director Simon last week was in Ajo, and it was a USDA, a rural development grant, and it was actually a loan to a private provider. So how does this dovetail with the USDA monies that are coming from the infrastructure, bipartisan infrastructure bill?
That's a great question. Would you like to take that? That's Bede.
I'm going to have you.
Okay.
Yes, but you can start. I can enhance.
Okay. Basically, the easy way to answer that question is that one of the things our office does is spends a lot of time figuring out deduplication. Okay. So it's federal funds, so we can only use one federal dollar to, fill that need, right? And so one of the things that you'll see on our website is a map of available funding, and where there are not funds, that's where BEAD comes in. So we work together with the other programs.
Yes, that's it. I was going to say it's called prior enforceable commitments, and we cannot overbuild on federal funding. So that's very clear with BEAD. So again, with our maps, and on one of the slides, there was a QR code to our Navigator portal. That map has taken years to build, and it started with the FCC map. And that identifies what homes may or may not have access, what locations may or may not have access, but it also helps to identify funding. And then we have added information to that as well. So we just have been building upon it so that we can identify what funding exists and where can funding still go.
Well, if I may just mention, that funding was for the private to get the internet to, but it's a very rural, impoverished community. I don't know if any of your funding helps support very low-income families in supporting to get the internet and pay for it.
That's an excellent point. So again, this is the BEAD portion is about creating the road and getting the access there, but then the subscription is another piece. So whether the affordability is another piece, but part of what is written into BEAD at the federal level and the NOFO is that as entities are applying to say, I would like to apply for money so I can build this, part of that plan has to include low cost options. Yes, so that this is an identified audience and population that we need to serve. There are 8 covered populations, and part of that is the low income. And so we need to be able to offer low cost options. So as entities are applying, they have to address that and show how are they meeting that need.
Thank you.
And the rural areas for sure are the priority. The priority is the underserved, unserved, and that tends in Arizona, that tends to be in the rural areas. 80% of our population lives in Maricopa County. So the majority of our population is covered already, and we are looking to serve those who do not have it.
Supervisor Christie.
Yeah, our district, District 4, we have underserved folks in what they call internet deserts, and they're not targeted members of that targeted community. And I'm kind of concerned about what about them? They seem to be left out of this whole process. And along those same lines, we've seen with the hurricanes in the east how the infrastructure for communications and internet were destroyed by the effects of the hurricane. And then Starlink was provided, and it seemed to cure the problem or certainly enhance the communicative abilities very simply without having to dig deep into the infrastructure to replace that. I don't hear any kind of discussion with Starlink in this whole program, and seems to me that what we've been looking at looks like a 20th century solution for a 21st century problem. Aren't we behind the whole trajectory of more efficient communications by not utilizing Starlink? And how about the areas in District 4 that are underserved, that aren't targeted communities?
Okay, so there's a couple of parts to this, and I'm going to start with this first part, and then we'll get into alternate technologies. Thank you, Supervisor Christie, for that question. One thing to keep in mind when looking at those covered populations, those are the groups that are being served by the Digital Equity Act. The BEAD side is to connect every underserved or unserved household, regardless of whether or not you also happen to be rural or fall into low income or have a member of your family that is living with a disability. So while these programs are meant to work in tandem, they are not the same. So when you look at that list of 8 covered populations, that doesn't have any direct correlation to building internet to that household. Does that help kind of separate that? So when you're looking at the map of underserved or unserved households in the state, many of those people also fall into those 8 covered populations, but one isn't exclusive of the other. If your household does not currently have 100 by 20 service, your household will be in a project area that an ISP will ultimately serve as a result of the BEAD funding. Then on top of that, we're going to create programming and training opportunities for members of the covered populations, because we know barriers that they've faced because they've told us through our research, creating the digital equity plan. So we're going to create resources for those 8 covered populations, but the household will get connected regardless of whether or not a member of that household is in one of the 8 covered populations. Does that help? And I realize we went through that part really fast, so I apologize. Can you talk about alternative technologies on the Starlink side of things?
Yes. Broadband is the fiber. And fiber is, I think, the priority type of technology. And based on the infrastructure, or let me rephrase, based on the geography of our state, which is incredibly diverse, and with our canyons, with our mountains, it's in some areas impossible to have broadband. So there are alternative technology options as well, and that would be your licensed wireless, and that would be your Starlink as well. So there will be households that will not be able to have fiber to the home. Instead, they will have Starlink, and I believe what that means is they get the kit itself.
Any other questions? Thank you. I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Was there anything else? Did you get cut off? Did you want to add anything?
I was going to acknowledge one piece, that all of these plans were written, going back to the low cost option conversation. The plans at all state levels were written when ACP was still enacted. And so it is something that we're also considering as far as the sustainability pieces are concerned. You'll see changes to how states are dealing with the cost consideration as a result of ACP going away. So I just wanted to acknowledge that we know that that's a thing that's still on the table in our plans. Okay. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We do have an individual here for 29, unless it's going to be a big discussion. It's La Frontera Partners to provide affordable housing gap funding agreement and affordable housing restricted covenant for the West Point 2 Apartments project. This is from the affordable housing gap of $1 million. This is an item, this is right here downtown, and it's for older members in our community. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 3-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. Okay, thank you. All right, now we will go back. Thank you all for coming. We'll go back to the regular agenda and on to item 19. This is a motion to censure Sheriff Nanos and request investigation. And this is an item put on by Supervisor Hines. Did you want to touch on that?
Yes.
Did you want to? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Halva. And I can't believe we're talking about this, frankly, because this shouldn't be necessary. I find it stunning that we're here, that an elected official of this county, someone that the voters entrusted in 2020 with their safekeeping, right? Public safety, who leads the largest law enforcement agency in Southern Arizona, has decided for what appears to be personal political gain to violate, I believe, the oaths we all take to uphold the constitutions of the United States and of the state of Arizona. Taking away somebody's ability, specifically a political rival, your opponent in a campaign while people are voting, taking away their ability to execute their campaign, to speak, it's foundational principle for the republic. It gets down to the fundamentals. It's what we're all about. It's the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. And this board has to certify elections. So we have to guarantee they were free and fair. And we have one of our county officials using the substantial authority and power that he has to put his opponent on paid leave, to use the internal affairs investigative resources of the Pima County Sheriff's Department to and then release a memo about it with what I believe are bogus and unproven charges against his political opponent. And all of this while he is a sheriff and able to fire this person because she happens to work for him. So I have, am I not? Sorry, forgive me. So I believe we have to take an action. We don't oversee the elected row officers. They are elected of their own accord, obviously. So all we can do is simply call the attention to this for the public and to ask that the appropriate authorities, and in this case, it would be the Attorney General, as well as the U.S. Attorney for Arizona, look into this, and I've spoken with multiple lawyers, the pretty darn clear violations of multiple federal statutes protecting a political campaign, a person who is conducting a political campaign, and their right to speak, to have that speech, to get their ideas out there, to engage with the community and with the public. That's what this is all about. So the fact that county resources, an official government, a person in government with an official position is using the resources of that position to impair his opponent, that it's unconscionable. The fact that it's a Democrat is like that's even worse, frankly, but it doesn't matter. It shouldn't be a partisan thing at all, because we have heard, and we may hear more, our incoming president has said some things that I take exception to and have objected to on multiple occasions, locking up Hillary Clinton, or Adam Schiff, or Nancy Pelosi, or anyone he may not agree with. That's not acceptable. But those are threats, hopefully not a real plan. But here in Pima County, we have a government official entrusted by the voters with this awesome authority who has actually enacted some of that. And I think it's devastating. And I was hoping that the sheriff would maybe, consider showing up. My colleague, Supervisor Christie, has put a couple of items forward that he has failed to show up for. It's very frustrating, but I don't know what he would say, because it is so plainly evident to me that he has violated the law in multiple ways for personal political gain using county resources. I wouldn't want to be standing right there talking to us about it either. I was hoping he would apologize publicly for his betrayal of his oaths, for what he has done to his political rival, regardless of the outcome of this race, which is still uncalled. And I was hoping that he would, just step aside, given this just calamitous series of events and his decisions to abuse his office in this way and betray the people of the county. I was hoping he would just offer his resignation and let us move on. But I guess that's not going to happen. So I'm going to simply propose that this board, I hope unanimously, given the circumstances, would consider and vote on a censure. In addition, a referral of this matter for criminal review of the various statutes that he has violated in doing all the things that I laid out here to specifically the U.S. Attorney for Arizona and also to Attorney General Mays for an immediate review, and hopefully they can take it forward to a removal if that's necessary, if he's violated these laws.
Mr. Brown, can we censure on this board? Can we censure another elected official?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisors, no.
Why not?
Supervisor Hines. Mr. Brown.
Chair Grijalva, Board, we can look into it for a more specific answer, but the general answer is the board is simply not, does not have the express authority to do so.
Yeah. Okay. I do think that some of the stress that the sheriff's department has experienced, specifically in having two people in the same department running for an office, is something that we should look at as a board, because I anticipate that it will be happening more often. I do think people should have the right to run for office, but I think that there should be some limitations, some changes. I know that in the past, the county has had sort of an outline of what an individual's schedule is when they are running for office and when they're not. So it's really clear. I don't believe that we have enough information. I do think that I would not be opposed to asking our Attorney General to look into this, or the FBI to look into this. And Sheriff Nanos has also, he sent a communication to the board on October 23rd, essentially saying the same thing, that he wouldn't be opposed to that. So, but I didn't believe that we could censure at all. And so that was one of my concerns in putting this specific item on the agenda.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie, then Supervisor Scott.
So we go ahead and censure as a board Sheriff Nanos. Are we going to end up in jail? Are we going to get fined? Will we be subject to a lawsuit? There seems to me that there is an ability by this board to express our displeasure and our concern and our ability to address a problem. And if you want to call it censure, if you want to call it reprimand, if you want to call it being mad at, any kind of words that mean the same thing but circumvent the concerns that the county attorney has expressed, I think would be appropriate. I don't think anybody could have said what the situation is all about more eloquently than Supervisor Hines, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. And furthermore, this really isn't political, as Supervisor Hines points out. The voting is over. That was one of the high road levels, I think, that we reached by putting it on this agenda today, a week after the election day allegedly is over. But as far as voting, that's over. There are also issues that have stemmed in the Sheriff's Department that have been talked about by this board, that have been put through the community on different situations that are still pending, that have not been addressed by the sheriff. We also have to look at the morale of the Sheriff's Department. If we don't take a stand as community leaders and representatives of Pima County regarding this type of behavior, even after the sheriff has been quoted in the media by saying, yes, I know this looks bad. He himself knows that it looks bad, but he went ahead and did this action anyway, regardless of how bad it looks. So he's cognizant of the issues that are around this. He's taken these issues on himself. So this board, by reprimanding him, censuring him, spanking him on the butt or whatever, really matters not. But it does matter that this board express our dissatisfaction and displeasure over this entire matter, and that if you want to put it into a different framework of words, so we're not subject to any potential lawsuit, I'm in favor of that. And if Supervisor Hines has a motion, so accordingly, I will second it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair, we have
follow-up question.
Mr. Brown.
Just because
Mr. Brown, sorry.
because we've been asked about liability, Chair and Supervisor Christie, I believe the prudent approach from a legal perspective would be to ask for an investigation, and then depending on the results of an investigation, perhaps the board can decide what action it wants to take. But a decision to censure before an investigation seems risky.
Understood.
So we can censure?
I'm sorry. Who wants to ask?
Let me just add.
Supervisor Christie, and then we'll take a turn. And then
I should
Supervisor
let
Scott's still waiting.
Supervisor Hines, but reprimand, express displeasure, concern, are all those words inappropriate?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, censure is a formal discipline. There may be another statement that the board wants to make, as it would perhaps with any type of resolution. A censure is something that the board could do to one of its own members.
No, you can't, but I suppose you could. I tried it. Sorry,
Right.
Matt.
Tides change, isn't it? Okay, so let me go to Supervisor Scott and then Supervisor Hines. We don't have I guess one of the concerns is that I would not be in favor of imposing some sort of discipline before we have any kind of official results of an investigation. So if we're asking for an investigation, I think that would be, I'm not sure where the rest of the board sits. I would not feel comfortable with the censure terminology for the reasons that Mr. Brown just outlined. But if we're going to be asking for an outside party, another, law enforcement arm, to look into this situation, conduct an investigation, asking for those things, I'm totally comfortable doing.
May I revise my motion then?
I'm sorry?
May I revise my motion?
I didn't know that you'd had a motion. That's why
Oh, it was just kind of a long, rambly one. But yeah.
No. You were talking about it, but we were both like, was that a motion? So I was trying to get clarification. Supervisor Hines, did you want to make a motion? Okay.
Yes, and I move that with regard to this matter and the sheriff, that we refer it for criminal review and investigation to Attorney General Mays, as well as the U.S. Attorney for Arizona and any other appropriate third parties determined by the county administrator for review.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second by Supervisor Christie. Now I will go to Supervisor Scott and then and Supervisor Lee.
Well, I had a question because Chair Grijalva, you asked Mr. Brown, who's our parliamentarian, a direct question, which is, can we censure the sheriff? His response was no. So my question is, why is the item on the agenda? If it's been your understanding all along that we're not allowed to do this, why is the item on the agenda? Because the public was under the impression leading into this meeting that we were going to vote on whether or not to censure the sheriff based on what was in a published agenda. But if your understanding all along was that we couldn't do it, I don't understand why the item's on the agenda in its current form.
So what I will say is, when I first became chair, remember I asked if we could have a review by legal to make sure that the items that were reflected on the agenda are actually not anything that we would find ourselves in a position of being able to have legal consequences for later. And that was shot down. So otherwise, if we had a caveat there that legal would be able to advise the board and go back to, let's say, the supervisor to request a change in language, something like that, that would make more sense on the agenda. But that's why right now any of us can put anything on the agenda.
But when we had that discussion,
do you want me to answer that too?
Go ahead. This is a corollary to that, because when we had that discussion, one of the reasons I voted no was because Mr. Brown said, well, I always have that ability to tell you if what you're putting on the agenda violates the law, correct?
That is correct, Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott. But it is not the Pima County Attorney's Office or my role to keep an item off or to rewrite an item. I do my best to reach out to offices to raise my concerns and to have language accurately reflect the law and what's possible or legal. And we don't always have the opportunity to have that conversation.
So you did not have that conversation with the sponsor of the item?
I did not.
And we also don't have the authority to take anything off. Like, it's part of our board regulations. And so Mr. Brown can look it over and say, I have some concerns about this, but he'll let us know. And then we'll sort of be on alert when the item comes up. But any one of the 5 of us can put something on the agenda that may or may not be something legally that we're able to do, and we can still put it on the agenda.
But it's conceivable if Supervisor Hines had known about those concerns prior to today, he might have reworded his item just like he's in the process of rewording it right now.
I can't.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Lee.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. First of all, I think that the word censor could be, I'm looking right now for synonyms, whether it's reprimand, whether it's, I think in addition to the motion that the board should express our belief that what happened could have been avoided. For example, we've been in this business of leadership. Perhaps a warning could have taken place rather than immediately going to leave without pay. So there are steps that you can take as a leader, and when you manage many, many people, as the sheriff does, there are options instead of going straight to you leave without pay for those 2 individuals. And that's probably what should have happened. So from my point of view, I'm all for taking it further, as we've already as the motion states, but I think the board should use select a word or a phrase that believes that it was hastily done, even though we don't have all of the details, but that a reprimand might have been what should have happened. And maybe a reprimand is what we say publicly and we vote on. So that's my opinion.
Supervisor Christie, did you have something else? And then Supervisor Hines.
An observation. Just an observation. This item was well known that it was coming before the board. I'm curious to the county attorney, Mr. Brown, why a legal opinion wasn't prepared for this meeting. We all knew it was coming up. We all knew we were going to ask for the legalities of it. It would seem to me that it would be a compelling issue to have a legal opinion prepared for this meeting.
Mr. Brown. Is that a question or just a statement? Your prerogative. Okay. Supervisor Hines.
Is this nomenclature? Is this supposed to be called a resolution of displeasure or something? Or it's just, I mean, if the actual disciplinary action of censure cannot be done by this board for any other elected county official, I guess, should this have been in a form of a resolution, I guess, would that be legal? I would like that answer, please.
Okay.
Chair
Mr. Brown.
Supervisor Hines, the board can collectively voice its displeasure with the acts of another elected official. There may be ramifications for doing so. If you all care to discuss that in executive session or in a more appropriate session context, I'm happy to do so.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion and a second that essentially is asking for an investigation. So if there's no other discussion, all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Okay. All right. Now we are on Item 21, this is the appointment to fill a vacancy of the position of Constable, Justice Precinct 9. This is very similar to what we've done in the past, that this position will be vacated on January 1, 2025. And so according to this, candidates will be required to provide the clerk of the board a letter of interest, resume, financial disclosure statement, and conflict of interest forms. The clerk will verify with the recorder's office if the candidate is a registered voter residing in Justice Precinct 9 over the age of 18. I don't see a specificity on the political party.
Chair Grijalva, there would not be, this is a seat that will be vacated at the first of the year. So there really is not an incumbent.
Okay, so any party can apply because it's a vacated position, open seat. And in coordinating with HR department, the clerk will verify education, experience, and that the candidate has no criminal background. And the Board of Supervisors will select a constable at the regularly scheduled meeting on December 17th to be appointed effective January 1, 2025. Any questions on that process? Okay, I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously.
Chair Grijalva, just for clarification, do you want this also advertised in the territorial or just on the county webpage?
I mean, I think that we've done it on the county webpage. It seemed fine to me, as long as we're very specific that there's no party affiliation like required. That, you know, because usually when we do this, it's like you have to be a certain party, and this is open. All right, item number 22. This one we didn't. Let me see. We didn't vote on this one. So this is similar to item number 13 that was already passed. And so I'll go ahead and this is for recommending an approval of an MOA or MOU with Pima County Regional Flood Control and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for the Santa Cruz River Wildlife Partnership. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. Item number 23 is final plat without assurances in District 4. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Christie. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed. Item passes unanimously. Item number 24, Pima County Recorder voter registration rolls fund from the House Bill 2862 General Appropriations. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion?
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie, then Supervisor Scott.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm curious about the timing of this item. When did Pima County get the money for this grant, and why is it being presented after the election? And I wonder if we're going to get assurances that the money will be used to ensure that the accuracy of the vote rolls will be obtained. And we have that contractor, what is it, Thelios? Is he going to be a recipient of any of this money? And why can't we use this money to bring that contractor or that contractor's responsibility back in-house rather than at his house in the basement, wherever he is or whatever he's doing? And if you look at the Pima County Recorder's website pages, we had an early ballot status report of Sunday, October 20th, that said that there were some over 1 million total ballots sent. And then on November 11th, that total ballots sent dropped from a little over 1 million to almost half that, 563,715. Will this money give us assurances that these type of discrepancies and issues could be alleviated by the utilization of this money? And maybe we could ask somebody from the recorder's office who's here to address them.
Administrator Lesher, I don't believe anyone from the recorder's office is here. Administrator Lesher?
Thank you. And Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Christie, this is funding that was allocated as clearly identified by the state legislature. What this is doing is simply allowing the recorder's office the spending authority to receive it and spend it.
And when did
It
we
had
get
come in, I do not know I'll get you the date, I don't know when it came. If it was passed in last year's budget, in last year's legislature, we knew it at that time, but I don't know if we knew the exact amount and if that's what was taking the delay.
And is that the justification for bringing it after the election before the board, or what was the timing here?
The question about the timing, sir, is one I don't have. I see that I think part of this is it was the materials that you've got were dated October 9th. And that this came, if you look at, the board form, it came to move to the board on October 9th. So the money had been received prior to the election, but with the timing of the board meetings, this was the first meeting at which it could get on a regular agenda, is my understanding.
Madam Chair, the amount of money was just under $500,000, is that right?
$478,448, yes, sir.
As we have no one from the recorder's office to respond, would like very much, given all of the issues that we're going through right now with the delayed tabulation, with the length of time it's taken, with the several discrepancies of the voter rolls and voter tabulations that have been incurred by the county, are we going to get some assurances from the recorder's office that this $500,000 will do what it's intended to do and that we won't have to deal with these types of things that we're dealing with right now? I just certainly hope that that money isn't just thrown away and done for staffing or for some other issues, rather than making sure that our elections can be counted on to be timely, accurate, and fair. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Supervisor Scott.
That's okay. What was the intent of the legislature when they passed this bill and it was signed by Governor Hobbs or by Governor Ducey?
I'm sorry, Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Scott, I do not know.
Okay.
So you're asking, what's the history of the legislation? What's behind it? What was the intent? Who signed it? I don't know, but we can put together a report for you.
But we were informed by the state treasurer that the funds were available in early October?
I do not know the day we were informed of that. What I know is when the finance department brought it forward for the spending capacity was on the first week of October, or I'm sorry, October 9th.
Okay. I'm just curious as to why the state treasurer wouldn't make it available to counties earlier in the process. So that's something I'd like to find out is, what was the intention of the legislature and the governor in when they were debating HB 2862, which became law, and when did they want counties to fulfill the intent of the legislation? And I recognize that this is not something that is under your office, Ms. Lesher, but if you can convey that either to the recorder or to Mr. Rossi so that we can get some sense of what the legislative and gubernatorial intent was and why funds weren't made available to counties until, sounds like a month before the election.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
To Supervisor Scott's point, first of all, I believe it was Governor Ducey that signed this. Secondly, to Supervisor Scott's point, he's raised a number of serious and pertinent questions. Perhaps we should continue this to the next meeting until those answers are addressed.
I don't know how it's going to change us accepting the funding. I mean, the funding is available for this. I mean, I think getting more information is fine, but I believe we've already accepted these funds, correct? This is just codifying it with a vote.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. This is to provide the spending authority to spend the funds.
Yeah.
Because they've been released.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Item number, we've done 25, 26, and 27. Can I take those together? Designation of a right-of-way and a deed. I'll go ahead and move both of those items.
Second.
A motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes unanimously. We've addressed 28, 29, and now we're at 30, detainee and crisis systems, formerly behavioral health. Can we take 30 through 33 together? Go ahead and move all of those items. Can I have a second?
Second.
A motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say, Supervisor Lee.
Oh, thank you, Chair Grijalva. I do want to just mention to my colleagues on the board that we have a small group working together on looking at expanding, or how can I say it, allowing for substance abuse to be part of Title 36 in a very restricted way. And that is something that, at this point, if there is an individual that is, for example, brought into the crisis response center and it is deemed within the first 23 hours and 59 minutes that that person's mental illness has to do with the substance abuse that they are experiencing, then they have to release that person, because Title 36 allows for involuntary commitment only if it is due to a mental illness. So it really restricts us if there's mental illness that is part of their substance abuse. So this is something that impacts the entire state, and that in a very limited way, we are looking at having something go through that would allow for involuntary commitment for a very short period of time, so that we can hopefully get that individual to a place that they can make rational decisions about their future and their health. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Items passed unanimously. Item number, can we do 34, 35, 36, 37? I'm just looking. 38 through 42, because those are all.
I have a question about 39.
Okay, so
I have one on 40.
Okay, so we'll do 34 through 38. Okay.
And, Madam Chair.
Yes.
And I am
Supervisor
recusing myself on item 38.
Okay, so how about I do 36? I'll do 34 through 37. Okay. All right.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Items passed unanimously. Item number 38 is a procurement award to multiple supplier contracts for, looks like, vehicles. So I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott, and then Supervisor Christie indicated he was going to recuse himself from this vote. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and then the recusal. So it's 4-0 with one recuse. All right, item number 39. Okay, 39 is an amendment of an award for Pennico Inc. to provide ferric chloride. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion, Supervisor Scott.
Yes, and either Ms. Lesher or Mr. DeBonis, I'm going to be really impressed if you know the answer to this. First of all, what is struvite, and why
I know.
why do we?
I'm
need
sure
to,
Mr. DeBonis can help you.
She's punting to you. Why do we need to control buildup in the wastewater solids treatment process of that substance?
Madam Chair and Supervisor Scott, so it's a byproduct of the wastewater treatment process. It's like a calcium deposit that builds up. So if you think about pipes filling up with calcium deposits, then they don't flow properly. So we don't want the buildup of the calcium deposits, the struvite, within the wastewater pipes and treatment system.
So,
and the
Wow.
gold star, man, that was the good one.
but right after that, it says use rates of the ferric chloride have been consistently higher than originally anticipated. You can tell by the number of times that the award amount
Well, hell, everybody knows that.
Humor me here, Supervisor. But so why do we not have a better sense, Mr. DeBonis, of what the use rates are going to be? Because these are some pretty significant increases over the course of time. Or is that something that's difficult to anticipate?
So Madam Chair and Supervisor Scott, all good questions. And so there are multiple things working here. So ferric chloride has been traditionally the method used to go ahead and reduce the buildup of struvite. It also takes care of odors that are generated in the wastewater system. We have introduced new technologies that are intended to prevent the creation of struvite within the system, which would reduce the necessity to put ferric chloride in. So you have a new technology that has come in that we're fine-tuning, so to speak. So we're trying to dial that in. The department has indicated also that through changes in experienced staff and new people coming in, we have some refinement that we need to do in terms of assessing what the estimates of ferric chloride usage will be. Additionally, we have no control over the pricing of that material within the marketplace. And so there's a cost increase component that's coming in. So you have the new technology, you have changes in staff expertise, plus increasing in pricing. So we understand that we need to do a better job dialing in what those estimates are. And just as a fair warning or a heads up, what the department has indicated is that with this particular amendment, there's not a sufficient increasing in the overall contract capacity. So what the department has said is that there'll be another item coming back for the board. So maybe we can give you a presentation or a primer on what we're doing to help dial that in better going forward.
You lost me back at struvite.
All right. A slide presentation. Just private viewing for supervisors.
or a personal tour out at the treatment facility.
Actually, I did go. I mean, it's really fascinating.
We have gone as well.
Yep, it really is. Okay, anything else? All right. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Can we take 40?
I have a question on 40.
Okay, we're not. Okay. Item number 40 is Douglas Food Stores, and this is for kitchen supplies for Keno and the jail, roughly? Or no?
Sorry, Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Christie. I'm sorry, it's not Chair Grijalva. It is. It's really for some of the last of the commercial equipment. The commercial equipment needed out in the jail.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Supervisor Christie.
Yeah, just if we could explain the funding sources. It's the Stadium District, Keno Sports Complex, but it's 75%, 79% by the Sheriff's Department, capital projects, and welfare funds. How, this is kind of...
Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Christie, the funding source is, there are a variety of funding sources that fund that contract because it is food. Some goes to the Stadium District, different locations. The funding in this amount, is my understanding, for this kitchen will be coming from the sheriff's budget. Piece of the food. Yep.
So, Madam Chair, Supervisor Christie, correct. So, Keno, as part of this amendment, Keno is not ordering new equipment. Correct. So, they hold the master agreement or administer the master agreement. This particular increase is related to equipment that's being purchased for the jail kitchen renovation project. So, the funding sources are specific to the sheriff, and there are two different sources. There's a sheriff fund, and then there's a sheriff welfare fund.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Can we do 41 and 42? We do 43?
43.
Okay.
44.
How about 44 through 47? Okay, so we're going to do 41 through 47. Okay, I'll go ahead and move the items.
Second.
I have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Any discussion?
Just that
Supervisor Scott.
I wish that all companies were as inventive as the company in item number 47.
Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items pass unanimously. Item number 48 is the acceptance of, I'm sorry. We're okay? Oh, what happened? Oh, you just got it? Okay.
He read 47.
I know, I got death drop holding. Okay. Item 47 is the community workforce acceptance of a 48. Right? Yeah. Community Workforce and Development Resolution number 2024-60. This is for rapid rehousing mostly with Compass. Okay. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Item passes 4-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. Do we want to take any of these in a bulk, or do we have some concerns?
Concerns.
Okay.
Up to 52.
Okay, so 49 is the, with the county attorney, acceptance of the Edward Bryn Justin Assistance Grant. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 4-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. And just to be sure, is this funding to hire an attorney to help with felony case work, or not that specific? It doesn't, it's fine, but I think that's what it was. Okay. Item number 50 is acceptance of the elections, Arizona Department of Homeland Security to provide for Pima County safe and secure elections, $32,000. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. And this is the concrete, those big concrete balls on the outside and bulletproof glass, right? Okay. I'll go ahead. We have a motion, a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Item 51, acceptance of environmental quality to provide Pima County Department Environmental Quality Volunteer No Drive Clean Air Program. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. And what this is we've already approved it. This is a revision of the total dollar amount by a reduction of almost $8,000. Okay. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Item passes 4-1 with Supervisor Christie voting no. Item number, can we take any others in bulk?
52
Okay.
through 57, 58, 59, 60, 61.
Perfect. Okay, we'll go ahead and do 52 through 61. I'll go ahead and move all those items.
Second.
Have a motion, a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items pass unanimously. So I believe we've done everything on the regular agenda. And now, right?
We didn't do 62.
It was removed from the agenda. Okay, thank you. I was like, what happened? Okay. I had a big squiggle through it, so, all right. So now we're on the addendum. We've addressed everything on the addendum number 2, because that was just the exec. And so on this one, we have to go to items 3 and 4 before we can do 2. So item 3 is revisions to board policy of naming of county facilities and programs. And item number 4 is recommends adoption of the policy C321, naming of county programs and facilities. So I'll go ahead and move both of those items.
Second.
Have a motion and a second by Supervisor Scott. Discussion.
Madam Chair.
Supervisor Christie.
Here again, why now? What is the prompting of this to be brought?
Administrator Lesher.
Sure. Supervisor Grijalva, Chair Grijalva and Supervisor Christie. We have continued to get requests or staff has named facilities or rooms. And when we looked at another item that you have on the agenda today, it relates to the naming of a courtroom. Discussion then about the fact that it really is up to the board to name facilities. We have a policy in place, but when that was passed, it was only related to how programs or buildings could be named as a result of fundraising. And it was a policy that was developed when we were building the PAC facility so that there could be charitable donations. we're looking to revise that so we make it clear that that policy relates to naming of buildings for financial purposes. And this, for the first time, actually just puts into place the fact that the board is the body that can make a decision about naming any part of a building or a program.
Madam Chair, Ms. Lesher, so from this point forward, if there's going to be naming of any county properties, if it's a room, if it's a building, if it's a playground, it's a
program,
pool,
anything comes
to the board.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. It surprised me that we didn't have something already, because when I was on and I'm sure Pima has the same thing, the TUSD board, I mean, if you wanted to name a room in a library, it had to come through the board as a process. And I think it makes sense because it puts as a vote that process. So if someone else comes in, let's say, I don't know, the county attorney wants to name a boardroom after somebody. The next county attorney coming in can just change it. There would be no because we haven't voted on it. There was no process. So this way there would be one.
There should be Madam Chair, maybe you know, Ms. Lesher, the lobby at 33 North Stone, the Judge Hooker lobby, how was that named?
Chair Grijalva, Supervisor Christie, I don't know the history of that building, but we can look for it. But this is speaking to, in part, why we believe there should be a board policy.
Maybe we should look at those and make sure that we just sort of vote in general for all of them, so somebody else coming in can't just go ahead and change it. Anyway, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Items pass unanimously. And now we're on to item 2, the naming of the courtroom of the Green Valley Justice Court in honor of the late Tomas Ayala, resolution number 2024-62. I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. This says
I'm sorry, did you want to second that, Supervisor? I apologize.
I would be honored to second.
Please.
Thank you. So Supervisor Christie seconds. This says District 5, but I think it's because we put it in, not because it's in District 5. Okay, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes unanimously. And with that, are we done? Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.